Welcome to Having a Brew podcast. Hello there everyone, and thank you for joining me on this very fine day, may I say. I'm sat here with a brew, so get yourself nice and comfy. Or if you like to work while you listen to a podcast, then begin doing whatever you like to do. So, as soon as this is the first ever episode of Having a Brew, it's just going to work a little bit differently to how some of the other podcasts will be working. We're just going to be going through just some of the structure. So first, I just want to explain to you, what this podcast is really about, who I'm aiming it towards, and if you actually like it, 'cause, not every podcast's for every single person. If you're on YouTube, there will be timestamps down below, so in the description, so feel free to click past this bit if you're just revisiting the first episode or whatever, or if you don't want to listen to it, feel free just to skip past this bit. So, what's this podcast all about? Well, it's mainly we're going to be talking about a lot of different topics throughout. I can't really put it in one category, to be honest. It's more of just a light chit chat podcast. That's what it's going to be about. Just having a general little talk. There's going to be towards the middle of the podcast, we're always going to do a TV and film section where we review and make suggestions on different shows we've been watching and what you might like to watch and what we think about it. So there'll be 3 different categories. There will be British TV, so that's like on live TV, so that's what you find on BBC, ITV, all of that, and you'll be able to find them usually on the iPlayer and the ITV Hub, depending. There'll be also some Channel 4 and 5 stuff in there as well. So that's the first section. Then we'll be also giving recommendations off channels like Netflix. There'll be a Netflix recommendation, usually a film or maybe a miniseries. You'll just have to wait and see. We've got some recommendations coming up later today in this show. But what else have we got? We've also got Sky Movies. We'll be giving a recommendation of our Sky Movies as well. So they're the 3 main. If we find something that we particularly like, then we will definitely be adding that in. So you'll definitely hear about it. Or if there's one that's maybe caused a bit of a stir in the press, then we will definitely be talking about that as well. If there's a show that gets good ratings, we'll be having a little chit chat about that. So, on the film side, it's going to be a very mixed with the films that we do review. There's going to be a lot of different stuff. Film-wise, it's going to be mainly, all over. Films that I tend to find personally are very quite broad and general in terms of where they come from. So there'll be a few American films, a few English films, Scottish films, wherever the film's made. So that'll be quite general. Towards the UK sort of stuff, we are going to be focusing on more of the British television, just because it's where I'm from Britain, so it's going to be more British TV and sort of the UK area, so I'm afraid some of our listeners may not be able to tune into that, but you'll definitely be able to get involved within the sort of film side of things, so that'll be good. And we won't only be doing film and TV reviews, there will be many other different things. So we're going to have a main talk point. Today's main talk point is going to be Coronation Street and whether it's tackling certain issues correctly, whether it should be tackling those certain issues. So but that'll be a good talk point, as it is a staple show in many British homes. So that'll be good. Also coming up in future episodes, we've got topics like social media, youth slang, and many more interesting topics. So stay tuned for all of them. It'll be very interesting. And also on the show, we will be releasing 2 podcasts per week. So we're going to be having, so this is going to run over a month. So there's going to be 8 in total. One's going to be released hopefully on a Wednesday, and the other one hopefully on a Sunday. And the Sunday podcast, my mum will be involved with that, and that's going to be more like, so with the youth slang sort of stuff, it is going to be educating her on that sort of side of stuff, and us having debates on whether, a certain word, is that really a certain word, stuff like that. Like tea, I hear tea a lot, that going around, so that with the kids, if you don't know, if you're an older listener, means sort of like gossip or beef. Personally, it's a beverage for me, a brew, as I call it, or my meal. I don't see why it's also this word for sort of like gossip or beef. You hear it a lot on YouTube, and I think YouTube's one of the big main platforms where people do create a lot of new words that probably haven't been around. But we'll get into that a bit later. So I hope that sounds all good for you. Hope you're going to enjoy this podcast, and we'll get into the main section. Just one last thing I want to mention before we get into the main section, and that is this is completely clean podcast. There will be no swearing in it, so you don't have to worry if your kids can hear. There's going to be no swearing at all, so yes. But anyway, on to the main section today. So our main section, as I told you, is Coronation Street. I picked Coronation Street for a couple of reasons. I'll go through them. One, it's the only soap opera I actually watch. I don't watch any of the other soap operas at all. Emmerdale, EastEnders, don't watch them. Corrie's the only one I watch. I found that Emmerdale and EastEnders are just not quite as good, and maybe went down the path Coronation Street is now going down far earlier. But that is just an opinion, so, you might think that EastEnders is better. I think they're all a bit quite the same, just different sets and characters, but I think the storylines are pretty similar that run between each. So Coronation Street I picked for a reason. One, I watch it, and two, it's the longest running soap on British TV, which I found quite interesting. It's been running since, if you didn't know, 9th of December 1960, and that was the first ever showing. It was in black and white, and the longest running character you can find in that episode is Ken Barlow, played by a man called William. I can't say his second name, so I'm not going to try. But yeah, Ken Barlow's in that one, and if you do fancy giving it a watch, seeing where Corrie's come to, as a sort of like, see its history, see its see its legacy, you can check all them out on the ITV Hub now. So not all of the old episodes are on there, but a lot of classic Corries are on the ITV Hub. So if you do want to go have a look, go check that out. And also you can find it on BritBox, some of them. I see there's not loads, there's just sort of like key storylines throughout each year. You'll find bits from the 60s, main storylines from 60s, 70s, etc. Personal favourite era of mine, 90s with the Corrie. I have watched quite a few different 90s episodes. Do really enjoy them. They are really good. So yeah. So, sort of like where this idea for this first podcast come from was a Metro headline that I saw. And that it's that fans crave dark storylines. And that was sort of the headline. That was, in the bold right at the top. And I looked at that and I thought, do they? And then, because I do like philosophy and ethics and sort of the whole talking about how people are, not sort of psychology as such. I'm not big into that, but I did sort of have a think about, do people crave this dark content now that Corrie's producing? And then it led to other questions like, should Corrie be producing this dark content, and is it for them to be airing to everyone? So yeah, I saw that Metro storyline. I was like, wow. They've obviously got that from somewhere. I don't know where their sources are or if it's true. But I was having a think. And I thought, where could they possibly get this from, And then, if you've ever watched, sort of just diverging away from Corrie, I don't know if anybody's ever watched The Office. An old sitcom. Not a sitcom. It's a mockumentary. Sorry about that. It's a mockumentary by Ricky Gervais. It is a UK show. It's really good. There is an American version, and that's what I sort of want to talk about quickly, is that difference between ours and the American culture, and sort of why I think that headline is that headline. And that's because if you watch the Office UK and the Office USA side by side, you'll see some very big differences, and a few of them are that it's a lot bleaker. The Office UK, as in the colours are very dark. It's quite monotone. It's really dull. But then if you watch The Office USA, it's very bright. It's happy. It's like woo! All the characters are dressed in quite bright colours, and it's very just upbeat. And then also if you look, that sort of like lighting effects, but if you also sort of look at the actual humour that they all they both produce, it's very different. The UK's sort of humour is quite sarcastic and is quite believable. Stuff that happened in the office could actually happen in an office. Maybe not all in the same office like the mockumentary shows, but definitely you can see them scenarios in a working environment. But then if you look at The Office USA, it's a lot different. It's stuff that probably would never happen at all, and characters you'd never find at all. So in The Office USA, there's a character called Creed, and he, on a Halloween special, has blood all over his shirt, and he comes in and says, well, isn't that lucky? Because somebody asks, oh, you got dressed up this year. And the joke is that he killed someone, but that'd never happen. Or I'd be shocked if it did, but you wouldn't find that in every office, and you wouldn't find all them characters in that office. So we like humour, we like watching stuff, especially from a comedy point of view, that could happen, that we could see happening in an office and happening in the real world. And I think we like, if you look at a lot of our TV, it is quite real life. You know, there is a lot of British crime shows that do really well. I've watched countless numbers of crime shows, and they're all really good. But then if you watch an American crime show, it's like really cheesy, and it's like, what? But then the British ones are really, you know, you can see them happening, you can see them murder scenarios actually taking place. And so I think that's where they've got this headline that Corrie fans crave dark storylines. I think they do, in a way, in a sense. I think British people were quite, in a way, I can say this because I'm British, that we like quite dull and dark stuff. Why do we like dull and dark stuff? Not all of us like dull and dark stuff, but some of us do, because I think it makes people feel better about their personal life. If you see somebody on TV and Coronation Street, for example, you know, but not for example, we are talking about Coronation Street, but if you see on Coronation Street somebody having their child taken away by children's services, and, you know, maybe your kid's playing up at home, makes you feel a bit better, in a way, because you think, well, that mother's doing far worse than me, even though it's a fictional mother, so I'm doing alright. My life's not that bad. You know, you know, let's say the Rovers burns down, well, if I owned a pub, well, my pub could be burning down, you know. At least I've got a pub that's standing, even though I've not got as many punters. It's that sort of thinking. And, you know, when I do watch Corrie, I think like that too. I think, wow, that, you know, my life's so much better than the characters on there. And it makes us feel better. It makes us feel more positive about our lives and how we are. And I think, you know, that's what we like as British people. And I think cultures all over the world are very different. American TV has shown us that. And like the examples I give, they do not like that sort of, you know, way of looking at stuff. If they're having a bad time in their life, they want a TV show that's going to bring them up. So Coronation Street wouldn't work, or the way it is set now wouldn't work in America. It just won't. It wouldn't work right, because people just wouldn't take to it as well as they do here. They like the comedy. They do. The Americans like the comedy, and there's not wrong with that. I love a good bit of comedy now and again. It is really good. So, I want to move on a bit. So we know why Corrie may be producing these darker storylines. But let's look at the history. I've been talking to a few people, and they sort of said the history of Corrie is that it was quite a happy-go-lucky, sort of gossipy show, and it was quite, like, funny and humorous. Yeah, stuff did happen. He was cheating on her with him, but it wasn't too dark. It wasn't as dark as it is now. And I saw a headline in another newspaper, not the Metro this time. I can't remember where I got this one from, but, you know, it sort of says that it's being fun, you know, it's renowned for its comedic tone and classic humour. That's what it's renowned for. People remember Coronation Street being like that. You know, it was very upbeat, happy, and that's just how it was. And, people loved it for years. That's why it is the longest running soap opera on TV, because people just keep going back to it. But, I think it's hard. I see what Corrie are trying to do. They're trying to educate people. They want to help people understand real world problems that we might not get involved in. So, let's look at a current storyline that's still ongoing. The Yasmin and Jeff storyline. And if you haven't watched Coronation Street, the Yasmin and Jeff storyline is that Jeff is Yasmin's husband and is abusing her he's not really ever physically abused. It's very mind gamey with Jeff. It's very mental. It's a lot of mental and emotional abuse. It did get quite physical towards the end. Sort of that one episode that they did where Jeff had a knife to Yasmin and she battered him over the head with a wine bottle. And I know if you never watched Corrie, that probably sounds quite what to you, because it was shocking. They did a full episode on that storyline, and I know why they're doing it. They're doing it to try to educate people, get people to understand that this goes on, that this could be to your neighbour. Just because somebody looks strong on the outside. Because Yasmin, before all this, was a very strong, independent character. She was always the one that always went and helped people. And that was great for many, she was great for many, many years. But it's just trying to show people that, one person can change the whole way that another person acts. And it's just educating people to say, look out for the people, even the ones that you think are the strongest. And I think that's why they've chosen Yasmin's character in particular to do this storyline on, because she was such a, strong character, and she's really weak at the minute, and she's under Jeff's control, even in prison. The storyline in her prison, she is still under his control. She has fought a bit back, but she's still very much in that mindset, and it's crazy to think that does happen. But is it Corrie's job to be educating you on that? See, my opinion, it's yes and no. Corrie should be educating you in it, but very differently. So what I was thinking was, let's look at Macbeth. Macbeth was a play written by William Shakespeare. And I'm not going to get into the details about it, even though I studied it for English. So Macbeth, there is a scene where Macbeth actually kills the king. And I'm sorry, I know I've ruined the book if you've not read it, but he kills the king. And when it was written, that was a major, major, major thing. Killing a king was like unheard of. Nobody would have ever done that in Shakespeare's time. So to an audience, that was like, what? Sort of a bit like how fans will have been going when they saw Yasmin being controlled by Jeff, and the shock and the sort of like horror that you felt for her. It's quite similar to how maybe it were a bit more shock in Shakespeare's time, because killing a king was the worst. England was very religious, and the idea was the king was, chosen by God, and was this being that was sort of on par with God in a way. A love of God. It was God, but on earth. But anyway, so killing a king was absolutely the worst thing you could ever do, and Macbeth does it. And the way Shakespeare does it is great. He doesn't show that on the stage. On the original Macbeth, that was never shown. You never saw the killing of the king. You just saw Macbeth come out with the knives and blood all over his hands. And that enough sent a massive symbol to the audience. Was like, whoa, he's actually done that. And it scared them. And people were in shock by that. It draws somebody in. However, when you've told a story that dark and twisted, you've got to let people process it. And it's the same with Jeff's storyline and Yasmin's storyline. You've got to let people process what happened, take in that, wait, that just happened, and that can happen. So Shakespeare did something I think Corrie should do. After the murder scene, Lady Macbeth and Macbeth go off, and a porter comes on, and the porter scene is very happy, it's very jolly, it's really humorous. It's about this drunk porter going to answer the door when it's knocking, and it's really good, and it splits the whole of the play up, and it just lets the audience take a breath, relax, and think, right, so that just happened. And so they can actually digest what did happen, and they know what's in front of them, and they can think, right, so that has happened. And if they're too busy thinking about the Porter scene, then it doesn't matter if they miss it as much, because he's not an important character, the Porter, so it doesn't matter if they do miss it. So that was the idea, and I think Corrie need to do something like that. When they're doing these really dark storylines that are trying to educate people, they need to stop after it, complete it sort of full, but have proper breaks in the middle of just have that dark episode, and then for 2 or 3 episodes just have a lighter feeling episode, just so people can be like, right, so yeah, in these lighter episodes you can maybe start to see the repercussions of what's happened. So like with Yasmin, you can see how it's affected her and how it's affected Jeff, and he's slowly losing his control. You can see that, but it's not the total focus of that, and it just lets people just digest it. But what Corrie are choosing to do is, we've just had this storyline, and then wham, we've got the Oliver storyline, and he's got this condition that's life limiting, and it's like bang, 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 bang. You just get bombarded with all these tragic storylines, and you're like, when is it going to stop? Because there's only so much of that you can take before it's like, this is way too much. And I think that's what Corrie need to do. They need to take a break. They need to put the brakes on some of the storylines and just try to let it digest. But not sort of digest for too long that you forget. Just have breaks, but not the break. So the break between, because the Yasmin storyline, I've not heard about it for a few episodes, and the break sort of is the Oliver storyline. But that's not what we really want or need as an audience. What we want and need is a funny break, something to just help you process it. And I saw on an article when I was prepping for this episode that comedy does help you learn and keep info in. If you teach through a comedic way, people are more likely to take that information in. So when Corrie are teaching things, they need to, I think, 1, tone the darkness down, but keep these heavy storylines in, but tone it down just a little. And 2, just try to get this comedy back in that they've lost, the writers have lost over the past sort of 10 years. It's just slowly gone to nothing. But yeah, the answer to the original question I asked, Corrie should be doing these big storylines, these problems that do go on, but just tackling them better, going at them slower, and just really showing, and just be like, have a break, this is what's happened, these are the effects. Let's not just throw you straight into the next storyline and like, there it is, another death. It can't be like that, and people don't like watching shows that are like that. Nobody's going to be interested in that. And sort of to back that point, viewing figures are down for Coronation Street. In 2016 it was 8.1 million tuning in per episode roughly, and in 2017 that went down to 7.8 million. It was something like a 3% loss. It was something around there, I've read when I was looking at the viewing figures, which they're very hard to find, by the way. I struggled to find accurate data on the viewing figures, so I don't know if they're perfectly correct, but I know there has been a reduction in viewers, not over the COVID period that we're in though, because people are obviously in lockdown and wanting stuff to watch, and it's like, yeah, let's watch Corrie, it's a time filler. But I think them viewing figures will soon plummet, especially now as lockdown's easing. These viewing figures are going to plummet for shows like Corrie that people just aren't that interested in, and especially shows that make you so depressed. These storylines, they're just really dark. I think instead of bombarding them, they need to pick 3 topics they're going to choose. 3 dark topics, so to speak. So like the Oliver storyline, the Yasmin storyline, and another one, I don't know. Whatever. 3. And then over a year, they plan to run them storylines. but they run them over a full year. I know the Yasmin storyline has been going on for a while, but it's just a full year of just these three. We're not given anything else. What happens in between these three storylines is quite comedic, humorous, stuff you can sort of be jolly about, you know. That sort of the Hilda Hogden sort of storylines, bring them back to fill the gaps between the three teaching storylines, I'm going to call them. So then people can just have time to digest what they have just watched. And they can really understand and really learn from Coronation Street. Because I think it is a good tool. Corrie should be used to help educate people, because so many people watch it. And it is on at prime time. And it is great that they are using it to educate people. I just think the way they're going about it is a bit too much and a bit too heavy. And it's just like, ugh. What I do like, though, so they've obviously had to stop filming recently, and I think they're getting back to filming soon. I don't know when. I could check up on that, but they've stopped filming. So they reduced the schedule of Corrie to 3 episodes, as you've probably seen, 3 episodes a week, a Monday, a Wednesday, a Friday, which is unlike the usual 2 on a Monday, 2 on a Wednesday, 2 on a Friday. So they've reduced it down, and I found it easier to be watching because I'm not getting bombarded as much. Because what I'd usually do is I never watch Coronation Street live. I use Coronation Street as a time filler. Lunchtime, watch Corrie. Oh, we've got 30 minutes before, whatever, watch Corrie. So what I've liked is not having loads of Coronation Streets to be watching. So I don't feel like, bombarded by all of it, because, you know, it's just a bit too much. Having only 3, I've been limited to when I watch them. So I felt I've been able to digest storylines more, learn from them, understand them, go away and think about them. And it has been better. So I think if they adopted the approach of going back to the normal schedule of 6 episodes a week, but on the other 3, on 3 of the 6, it's quite light-hearted, and on the other 3, it's more hard-hitting. And it's the idea of, it's taking the Shakespeare approach. It's that, have a hard hitter, after that, on a Wednesday, have the softer one. You know what I mean? If you have a hard one on a Friday, then Monday it's going to be a softer one. However it works. But yeah, Corrie should be used as a platform. In conclusion, Corrie should be used as this platform to help educate people. Because I think it's a great platform to be using to educate people. But I think it needs to be done differently, like we discussed. And it just needs to be better managed. And they need to take a Shakespeare approach towards it. And be more relaxed and mindful about how their watchers feel about these storylines. But yeah, that's bringing to us head the Corrie chat. I hope you enjoyed that. We are going to be doing that, so that were about a 20-minute chat. Chats will vary, but I'm going to try and make each podcast about 35 to 40 minutes long. Not too short, but I don't want to make it too long. So that's where it's going to be on a solo podcast. The chats will probably be longer when it's a Sunday podcast. I'll make them a bit longer. But yeah, I hope you enjoyed that discussion. I'd love to hear what your thoughts are on Coronation Street, how you think they should tackle these darker storylines, and if you think they're doing it right. I don't know, maybe some of you think, yeah, it's great how they're doing it, I love these dark storylines. But maybe some of you are like, no, bring back the old comedic Corrie. Where is it gone? You know, where was it lost? And yeah, so let us know. I'd love to hear. Okay, so moving on to the next part of the show. Recommendations. So, we're going to start off with Netflix. I think so. I watched a film, as you do to review one, and it's called Dangerous Lies on Netflix. Now, it is a good film. It is rated a 12, I believe, but probably just check on that and it'll be on Netflix as well. I think it's rated 12, so something most of the family can watch, not all of the family. Personally, I think maybe, depending on how you feel about what your kids like to watch, but I think potentially, a younger child could watch it. It's not that it's a scary film, it's more that it's quite a complex film, and I think that's why it's rated a 12, because I don't know if a younger audience could fully manage to wrap their head around everything that goes on in this film. Overall, it is a really good film. I do recommend you giving it a watch. It is worth the watch. Sort of like when I started watching it, it felt like a video game. So like, there's this first shot and it pans down into a car park and the colours are like purple and pinks, and it's so like a video game. I was like, what? It feels like a game. It's that sort of like American hit game sort of thing. So that was quite funny. It does get better and the acting is very good, and that gamey feel doesn't last more than for about 5-ish minutes. Sort of like once you get past the main titles, it does get softer. The main titles are like certain big blockbuster games that you see. But yeah, it's not one of those films that's going to leave you sort of like thinking all night. And once you've sort of watched it, you sort of get the idea and you understand. And it's not one of those films that you're going to go to bed scared stiff about, especially as maybe a 12-year-old. You're not going to go to bed thinking, oh my goodness, what if I just watched? What about if somebody comes and like gets me in the night? It's not one of those films like at all, really. It's more just easy watching. The acting is relatively good, I'd say. It's average. It's, a typical Netflix film. It's not Hollywood acting, but it's definitely good. And I think there is some rising stars within Dangerous Lies, and I think some, certain lead characters could definitely go on to do bigger things as they progress as actors. However, I think there are certain actors that bring it down and are not as good. And I just don't want to give too much away if I say which characters I think are not as good. I think you can probably, when you watch it, if you do watch it, judge which are maybe not the best at acting. But, overall, because the main acting, the main two actors are relatively good and do bounce off each other, I felt, a lot of, good vibes between them two. It's really noticeable when the two lead actors just don't get on outside of the movie, and you can just tell by their acting that there was something wrong behind the scenes there. But no, these two definitely did get on, and it's definitely worth a watch. Out of 5, I'm going to give it a 3.9. So, it's definitely up there. It's more than half, so it is really good. So it's definitely worth a watch. I wouldn't go out of your way to watch it. I wouldn't go run down the stairs now after this podcast and be, oh my goodness, I've got to watch it. It's like one of those, do you want to watch film sort of things. Sunday night film, I'd say. Sunday night film. Yeah. Now on to the British TV category. Now this is a show that has finished now. So you can catch it on the BBC iPlayer though. And it has sort of got one of those, if you've probably all heard of it, it's Killing Eve. It's got quite a cult following of watchers that absolutely adore it. I've watched all 3 seasons now, fully way through. First season, amazing, definitely should watch. Second season, yeah, give it a go. Third, they're just trying to push it out at this point. Honestly, I do believe that. The first 2 were really good. But the third one, they're going over the same ground here at this point. It's the same stuff. And you never really get proper answers. And it's like, they've left it so open for a 4th season. And I honestly don't think I'd watch a 4th season if one was made. Because I think they've just run out. They would have to take it down a completely different line. So Villanelle, the hit person, the assassin, the Russian assassin, I think she needs to, after this one, she either needs to go or Eve needs to go. They can't keep being intertwined into the same story. I think 3 seasons is about as much as you can push out of them two now. I think it's sort of dried up. I think the first 2 were great. I think that it just feels like at this point they're just trying to push the TV out. It's like, oh, it gets great ratings, let's do another series. But it's like, it's alright doing another series, but if it ain't that good, is it worth doing another series? And I won't watch it again. See, I'd probably watch the season 1 and 2 again, but I probably won't watch season 3 again. If you have started the trilogy, and I've liked the first two, I'd definitely give 3 a watch, just to sort of wrap it up. It does offer a few answers about Villanelle and her background, so you do learn a bit about that. So yeah, overall, I'd give, it's just season 3, a 2.5 out of 5. But for the whole thing, I'm torn. See, season 3 really brings it down for me. I'd probably give it a 3.8. 3.8. The whole thing a 3.8. But season 1 and 2 on their own, it's definitely a 4.5. It's up there. It is really good. It's one of those things that is quite weird, and it's definitely not really suitable with the whole family. Kids sort of my age, I'm 16 now, and sort of like 14 up would be my recommendation, but I would give it a watch yourself if you're a parent first, and see if you think it's suitable for your kid, because everybody's a bit different. Now for the Sky movies, and it's got to be Avengers Infinity War. It had to be the first one. I love Avengers, and I think it's been great. I've really, really, really enjoyed the whole of the Avengers saga and what we've seen. And the first Avengers, I loved. I absolutely loved the first Avengers. It was a phenomenal film. It was really good. The first Avengers was awesome, and it was really well produced. It doesn't stand up to the test of time as well now, because the Avengers films are so heavily CGI'd and computer generated. They don't stand up as well as some of the other films that use more practical effects, like the original Star Wars stand up quite well because it's a lot of practical effects, but it is still a good film. And if you've started it and you've not watched Infinity War yet, then it's definitely worth a watch. And sort of the Squidward character, yeah, I think if you've watched it, you'll know what I mean. My favourite villain out of the whole thing, beats Thanos, beats him. Love the Squidward. So yeah, really good CGI. It's great for all of the family. It's not that younger is, it's not that younger, it's like Dangerous Lights. It's not that younger children couldn't watch it. It's that, would they understand it? And I don't think they would. I've had to watch Infinity War twice now to pick up everything. And you tend to find that with the Marvel films, you have to go through them twice. Well, whether that you watch it once in the cinema and then once again at home on like Sky Movies or whatever. But you do have to watch it twice just to get everything soaked up, even as me older. But yeah, you could watch it with a younger child, but they probably may get bored because it is quite a long film and it's quite a lot to take in. But out of 5, I give it a solid 4.3. It is really good. I thought, it could have been slightly better. I just feel at this point they're rushing them quite a bit. The Marvel are just trying to churn them out a bit. So there was some bits that weren't great. But yeah, solid 4.3. And that wraps up the recommendations for this week. Now we've got the section where a bit of celebrity news, any celeb news that I quite like reading about. So what have we got? What storyline that shocked me? Well, not a storyline, a story that shocked me. Bradley Walsh overhauls lifestyle after doctors warn he could die of heart disease. And his quote was, "I was a time bomb." Now this shocked me when I read this, because if you look at Bradley Walsh, he doesn't look huge like that. I would have never thought that he would have been at risk, but I hope he gets better. I love him. The chase is great. I hope he does manage to lose his weight and he's all healthy and all his family's healthy, because I do absolutely love him. But that one did shock me. And Love Island's Molly May has denied fan speculation that she's pregnant after the star posted a snap of baby shoes from Gucci. So first of all, the headline caught me, but then when I saw how much the shoes cost from Gucci, And like, why would you spend that much on baby shoes? Baby shoes that you're not even going to use was like, what? These shoes were £235. Now you can Google it and have a look. They are not worth £235 in my eyes. But yeah, so Molly May is not pregnant. So she has shut down all rumours of pregnancy to her fans. And that just about concludes celebrity news. I know it's a bit odd, celebrity news, but it's when I'm writing these scripts, I just sort of pick out the stories that I like. So they're not probably going to be the most up-to-date storylines, but the ones that shock me the most, and that price tag definitely shocked me. So guys, hope you enjoyed this podcast. Hope to see you on the next one. Until Sunday, see you later.